Buongiorno a tutti voi, vi chiedo la cortesia di prendere posto in sala che iniziamo. Grazie. Se prendete posto per cortesia. Bene. Illustre Presidente Bonaccini, illustre Presidente Bracco, illustre Presidente Nicolais, illustri assessori, Bianchi, Caselli, Costi, colleghi, signore e signori, buongiorno a tutti voi e benvenuti davvero di cuore al World Food Research and Innovation Forum ed in particolare alla seconda giornata dei lavori di questa iniziativa. Sono Fabio Fava dell'Università di Bologna, sono davvero molto onorato di aver avuto l'opportunità di darvi il benvenuto e in particolare di darlo ai nostri illustri relatori della sessione di apertura, che chiamerei direttamente al palco perché partiamo con un po' di ritardo, così procediamo più speditamente. In particolare chiedo alla dottoressa Bracco, presidente di Expo e commissario generale per il padiglione italiano, di raggiungermi qui al podio e di proseguire.
Grazie professore. Grazie a tutti, buongiorno, mi associo ai saluti che ha fatto il professor Fava. Sono pur in una giornata così tempestosa che però metterà a prova le strutture dell'Expo in funzione della auspicata prolungamento nei mesi invernali, almeno di qualche parte, perché è chiaro che l'Expo deve chiudere il 31 d'ottobre. Sono felice di portare il mio saluto a questa importantissima iniziativa che in effetti arricchisce di contenuti scientifici e sociali la nostra Expo. Avevamo detto all'inizio che l'Expo sarebbe stata un'agorà aperta e globale dove portare e dibattere idee e riflessioni sul futuro del pianeta. Avevamo detto vogliamo che tutti si esprimano e si possano esprimere e vedremo poi se riusciamo a condensare in una legacy condivisa le conclusioni. E voi sapete che si sta lavorando alla Carta di Milano e che questa verrà poi presentata nel mese di ottobre al segretario Ban Ki-moon, portando proprio questi contenuti. Però credo che proprio in questi giorni il ministro Martina la presenti negli Stati Uniti. Ora, qui ci si è davvero confrontati sulle soluzioni che la ricerca e l'innovazione hanno reso disponibili per affrontare queste sfide epocali che la nostra generazione per la prima volta si trova ad affrontare e che sono la gestione sostenibile delle risorse, i cambiamenti climatici, la tutela del suolo e dell'ambiente, la sicurezza alimentare. E il convegno di oggi, con le sue relazioni scientifiche di altissimo livello, che ascolteremo con enorme interesse, si affianca idealmente a quel programma di eventi che Padiglione Italia ha messo a punto in collaborazione col CNR e con la CRUI, un ricchissimo palinsesto di eventi che abbiamo col presidente Nicolais chiamato Vivaio Ricerca e che affronta temi di grande interesse e attualità da punti di vista diversi, con particolare attenzione al valore della biodiversità, del miglioramento genetico e dell'innovazione tecnologica. Abbiamo fatto un convegno appunto su questi temi riferito alla filiera del grano, ma io ricordo con particolare emozione il convegno sul tema della siccità e della desertificazione, veramente allarmante e veramente emozionante, e credo ha avuto una grande eco e credo che abbia gettato semi importanti nell'uditorio. Ora, Vivaio Ricerca e il convegno di oggi nascono innanzitutto dalla convinzione profonda che la scienza e la tecnologia sono le prime alleate della food safety e della food security. Ed è questa la principale lezione che secondo me emerge da Expo 2015. Visitando i molti padiglioni di tanti paesi ci si rende conto che la ricerca e l'innovazione rappresentano un vero fil rouge. C'è stato chi ha messo in mostra i risultati ottenuti dal proprio paese con la desalinizzazione e il riciclo delle acque, come gli stati arabi del Gulf Cooperation Council, chi ha condiviso le proprie esperienze di sostenibilità come il Cile, come Israele, la Germania, la Mongolia, o le tante best practice che abbiamo ammirato nei padiglioni africani, a iniziare da quello dell'Angola. Dappertutto la parola innovazione, dappertutto la ricerca di soluzioni. L'Italia col suo settore agroalimentare, che rappresenta un'eccellenza indiscussa a livello mondiale nella gestione del prodotto dal campo alla tavola, ha molto da dire su questi temi, perché la nostra agricoltura ha sempre saputo coniugare l'utilizzo di tecnologie avanzate e la ricerca di incremento produttivo con una grande attenzione e responsabilità alla sostenibilità dei processi e alla sicurezza alimentare. E quindi la stessa industria alimentare italiana, che fa del cibo made in Italy un fattore culturale, un fattore socializzante, un fattore aggregante, primeggia sul piano della food safety, impegnando in attività d'analisi e di controllo circa 60.000 addetti, il 15% del totale. E la food safety è un valore aggiunto per i prodotti ed è un fattore strategico per l'internazionalizzazione del modello alimentare italiano. L'Emilia è una parte essenziale, importantissima, anche perché la food safety è diventata un elemento determinante nelle stesse scelte dei consumatori, soprattutto europei. Tante persone sono sempre più in grado di riconoscere il valore intrinseco di ciò che comprano, dalla scelta delle materie prime agli aspetti tecnologici, all'attenzione rivolta al corretto utilizzo ambientale delle risorse naturali. E concludo con una riflessione. Io credo che questa Expo stia svolgendo un ruolo davvero importantissimo per la sua capacità di veicolare a una platea internazionale contenuti di grande significato. Milano 2015 è davvero una piattaforma di idee in grado di creare una consapevolezza diffusa fra i cittadini di tutto il mondo sulle grandi sfide del presente e del futuro. E le tecnologie e le conoscenze per trovare soluzioni ai problemi, noi le abbiamo. Ci abbiamo riflettuto e l'abbiamo condiviso anche con parecchi di quei grandi rappresentanti degli stati che abbiamo avuto l'onore di ricevere a Palazzo Italia. Quindi noi abbiamo le tecnologie e le conoscenze per battere la fame, per battere tutti questi elementi di rottura. Ora è la politica che deve prendere il testimone guidandoci, facendo pienamente la sua parte, perché a mio avviso noi abbiamo bisogno di un futuro di pace e di sostenibilità nel pianeta per crescere in maniera armoniosa, che è poi il tema della nostra Expo. Grazie.
Dottoressa, davvero grazie molte per il suo intervento molto efficace e onestamente credo che da parte di tutti noi un ringraziamento speciale per quello che ha fatto, sta facendo per il nostro Expo e per il nostro Paese. Davvero grazie per tutto questo. Ora il testimone al professor Luigi Nicolais, presidente del CNR, che come sapete è l'istituto più grande che abbiamo in Italia per la ricerca e anche l'innovazione. Prego, Gino. Grazie.
Grazie moltissimo al professor Fava. Grazie molto al presidente Bonaccini che con il suo staff è riuscito a organizzare due bellissime giornate in cui veramente si è discusso sia in maniera scientificamente molto profondo tutto il grande problema della food security e sustainability and safety, ma anche perché siamo riusciti forse a trasferire anche a un pubblico comune qual è l'importanza della ricerca. Io credo che questo sia un punto importante. Ovviamente ringrazio la dottoressa Bracco che ha tanto fiducia nel CNR, per cui questa cosa l'abbiamo fatto insieme ancora prima che partisse veramente questo bellissimo Expo e abbiamo previsto proprio questo vivaio ricerca come un elemento di base per tutti, per capire che la ricerca non è un qualcosa che serva solo a mettersi un fiore all'occhiello, ma è l'elemento centrale per l'innovazione e per l'avanzamento di qualunque paese. Grazie ovviamente alla Regione Romagna in generale e credo che la Regione ha dato dei grandi segnali forti di innovazione già prima di questo Expo e anche durante l'Expo. Io credo che uno dei punti importanti che abbiamo imparato durante l'Expo, che ormai non esiste più la ricerca di una singola disciplina. Oggi se vogliamo avere un breakthrough tecnologico, se vogliamo avere un breakthrough scientifico, abbiamo bisogno di avere esperti che parlano con esperti. Uno dei punti più importanti è chiedere ai nostri ricercatori di essere sufficientemente umili da parlare con altri ricercatori per poter veramente riuscire ad avere degli avanzamenti della conoscenza. Il settore generale dell'agroalimentare e delle scienze bioagroalimentari richiede una forte interdisciplinarità. Qui nei nostri 25 eventi che abbiamo organizzato, 24 organizzati tra di noi e uno con la Fondazione Lorenzini, abbiamo sicuramente messo in evidenza che quello di cui abbiamo bisogno è una interdisciplinarità e il CNR nasce con l'interdisciplinarità. Io credo che è molto importante che l'Italia impari a lavorare in sistema. Noi abbiamo bisogno di un CNR che lavori con l'Enea, di un CNR che lavori col CREA e di un CNR che lavori con le università. Il sistema Ricerca Italia deve rappresentare quella massa capace veramente di dare una spinta all'innovazione. Innovazione è una parola di cui si legge spesso sui giornali e tutti parliamo di innovazione, molto spesso senza nemmeno capire bene che cosa significa innovazione. Innovazione è una mentalità, è un modo di mettere in discussione tutto, è un modo per riuscire non solo a raggiungere dei grandi risultati scientifici, ma capire che quei risultati possono rappresentare un breakthrough e un cambiamento totale del modo di fare anche industria. E quindi l'innovazione va portata avanti insieme con l'impresa. Impresa, università, mondo della ricerca rappresentano un unicum per un paese che vuole crescere. Noi oggi non competiamo più sul costo del prodotto, ma competiamo sulla qualità e la competizione sulla qualità richiede una grande capacità di interazione e una grande capacità di vedere qualcosa che non esiste ancora. La vision è l'elemento centrale dell'innovatore e io credo che in questi 25 eventi, durante tutte le nostre discussioni, abbiamo in qualche modo dimostrato che il nostro paese veramente è un paese che che ha la sua creatività, di cui molti ce ne riconoscono l'esistenza, ma anche una grande ricerca di base, anche una grande e fondamentale capacità di interlocuzione tra di noi. Io credo che questo evento dovrebbe avere un dopo evento, non solo per come si utilizzerà quest'area, e noi tutti della ricerca siamo pronti a lavorare insieme per vedere l'utilizzazione, ma anche come non disperdere questi grandi insegnamenti che abbiamo imparato durante questi 6 mesi di Expo. Dobbiamo creare anche noi italiani un forum appunto sulla food security, food safety, in cui continuiamo a parlare tra di noi. Non dobbiamo chiudere questo Expo e poi torniamo a casa ognuno di noi portando avanti la sua ricerca nel suo piccolo laboratorio. Abbiamo bisogno di stare assieme. Questo io credo che sia un elemento importante, che è la lezione più importante che abbiamo avuto. Abbiamo sicuramente avuto anche il piacere di interagire molto con l'Europa. L'Europa rappresenta per noi un elemento forte di indirizzo. Io continuo col pensare che sia l'Horizon 2020, sia anche i fondi strutturali per le regioni che si chiamavano una volta obiettivo 1 in via di sviluppo adesso, ma diciamo rappresenti un segnale forte. Dobbiamo competere sulla innovazione e sulla ricerca. Questo è il segnale principale e su questo credo che il Paese anche debba avere la capacità di prendere decisioni forti, perché abbiamo bisogno di trasferire la politica, non solamente di raccontarci quello che dice l'Europa e cercare di seguirla soltanto, senza sviluppare una politica chiara per i nostri cittadini. Io, come presidente di un ente di ricerca che ha oltre 10.000 ricercatori e che si interessa di tanti altri argomenti, credo e sono convinto che il futuro dello sviluppo di questo Paese, insieme con le imprese, è quella della ricerca e dell'innovazione. Grazie molto.
Grazie Presidente, altro messaggio davvero molto efficace. Grazie per questo, efficace per i ricercatori che sono qui, so che ce ne sono molti, per istituzioni, le aziende, ma per il sistema della ricerca Italia. Io, rappresentando il nostro Paese in Horizon 2020, sono assolutamente allineato. Il nostro grande problema è la frammentazione, ma anche all'interno dei stessi ricercatori universitari o CNR, insomma, c'è troppa frammentazione, non riusciremo mai a competere adeguatamente ai livelli che possiamo, ma soprattutto a implementare ricerca e innovazione, come dici, se non si aggrega. Grazie infinite per questi messaggi di apertura particolarmente efficaci, grazie. Proseguiamo adesso con la parte più tecnica e l'obiettivo di questa parte, che poi sarà in inglese, questa primissima parte, è fare un po' il punto di quello che è emerso nelle discussioni di ieri, nelle tavole rotonde che abbiamo avuto ieri e quello che abbiamo raccolto dagli input ricevuti dai nostri speakers. E quindi chiedo di poter avere la mia presentazione. Bene. So I will try to give you an overview on, the major inputs that we collected yesterday in the frame of the first session, morning session, that was focused on research and innovation for more sustainable food security and safety at a wide level. We had two portions, one session in the early morning focused on the general issues of research and innovation, ICANN Act, for developed countries, and then we had a roundtable focusing on what we have to do for emerging or developing countries, okay? So first of all, research and innovation can contribute for sure to ensure global and durable sustainable food and nutrition security and safety by developing solutions targeted to increase productivity, sustainability, and safety at all stages of the food chain, from the primary production to the formulation of safe and healthy diet. This is for sure. But research and innovation has to do other things, very important issues, providing the scientific and technical knowledge to resolve inherent trade-off impacting on the societal choices. As an example, the conflict in between intensive production of food and environmental protection. We need information from the research for understanding where there is the limit, how solve this conflict. And then we need science and technology for developing, for underpin good, robust policies in the sector. So not only technology, but other things are requiring a good research and innovation actions. So the major actions to be taken to promote durable, sustainable food security and safety are the following. I tried to summarize what we developed, what we put together in the discussion paper, and what also came out yesterday during the discussion sessions. First of all, to increase primary production yields from the current agriculture, trying to reduce at the same time the environmental impact and increasing resilience, particularly resilience towards climate change. This can be done by increasing soil fertility or adopting improved cultivars. Yesterday we had a very nice, very effective talk on this, a good example for small crop, as an example. But we also have to develop sustainable agricultural models, precision farming, and advanced mechanization. We have to improve the productivity along, and as well as the resilience, etc., in the livestock area, fishery, aquaculture sectors. We have to do this once again by looking at the environment, by making our action sustainable. Then we have to create new opportunities. So we have to create a new agricultural landscape via rural and marginal land development, integrated land use planning, to produce food, the bio-based products and fuels at the same time. We have to work on this in order to make both things possible. Wider ecosystem service provision and boost marine aquaculture, which is not exploited so far. This is a new area on which we can do a lot for improving primary production of course, in the fish area. Then urban farming, horticulture, and the use of alternative resources of proteins. There are many options, many ideas here, but we have to test them. Then, of course, from the other side, we have to minimize raw material losses. We have to minimize food wastages through the entire food chain via longer range agricultural planning, demand forecasting, more resistant cultivars, more efficient processing in particular, producing more food and less byproducts and waste by lowering at the same time the use of water, use of energy. We need to implement smart packaging and also smarter supply and distribution chain logistics. And we have to start at the industrial level because we have already a lot of information at the laboratory scale, start converting unavoidable byproducts. So the low amount of byproduct that we can produce when we are improving the process, we have to work on those byproducts to prepare new food ingredients and food products, new food products. And we have to recover water, which is another very relevant resource that we have to recover. And then we have to, of course, improve food safety and quality, lower the occurrence of chemical, microbial, biological contaminants throughout the whole food chain via the adoption of more resistant cultivars, innovative technological processes, smarter packaging, real-time control methods for the contaminants, and then we have to also improve the existing toxicological tests. And then we have to increase the availability of healthy, safe, nutritionally improved foods, both traditional and novel foods. Yesterday we had a very effective talk on this as well. And then we have to promote healthy diet via science-based information and education. This is very important. It was also the point very well addressed by our colleague yesterday morning. So we need to clarify these things, to inform very well by using scientific-based information. robust information, not the things that are circulating every day, because the society has to be informed about the beneficial, the adverse health effect of foods, and we have to also improve knowledge on the nexus, diet, lifestyle, and health. This, I can say, are the major inputs that we collected. I can add for developed country. For developing country or emerging country, the strategy is more complex. It's not enough thinking about new technologies, new processes. Very often we need simple technologies. We need research and innovation action tailored for the specific local needs, based on the local social, economical, environmental, and climate conditions. So something specific, something very well developed in Europe cannot work at all in the areas in which those technologies have to be implemented. So we have to work on the on-site. Agriculture is a core sector in general, but the focus should be on the entire food chain. But agriculture is the first sector in which we can create opportunities. Through innovation, process and practices can generate more business, social value, at the same time reducing at the same time the use of the few resources, etc., etc. We have to implement or to favor the setup, the establishment of local public-private partnership, technical and commercial initiative, also involving foreign partners, but led by the local people. We should not go there by coordinating things. We have to allow them to coordinate, to select the technologies at the local level. And then we need, of course, support, launch of funding program, Horizon 2020, the newer program that has been approved 1 month ago, it will be published in 1 month, contains a specific call for supporting cooperation with Africa, supporting cooperation with China. So there is already in place, but UNEP can do more, it can do a lot on this, World Bank, etc. We have to do this, in particular, catalyze the knowledge transfer at the local level, the setup of clusters, as I mentioned to you before, etc. And a foreign country can be part of the decision, but not the lead, cannot lead the initiative. Then we need, this is very important, our boundary actions. We need to ensure the access to resources, knowledge, infrastructure, local investments, lands, indigenous seeds, on-site selected genetic resources. So we have to ensure the access to these resources and to the market, to the local and the small food producer, family farmers, fishers, in particular ladies, women, who are responsible for 60–80% of the non-cash crop food production. We have to generate, we have to put in place these boundary actions to generate site-specific economic growth and equity. These actions are political, social, and communication actions. So they are in addition to a strategic research agenda, etc., etc. And then, of course, we have to promote existing example. Yesterday, a couple of speakers provided us with very effective examples, successful example already in place. So the existing successful example of cooperation with developing countries should be duplicated and used as a model for further actions. Emilia-Romagna region presented some of them. This model it seems quite appropriate for such a new action on place. The other message that I included here is donors' actions and local needs should be better matched, because very often there are people who are offering, but what is offered is not exactly what is needed. So I stop here because I use more time than I expected to use, for sure. Thank you for your attention. This is we are setting the scene for the roundtable, which is coming out. So this is from the first part of yesterday. These are the main outcomes. So now I'm leaving the floor to my colleague, Professor Groffrey, Samuel. I don't know if the pronunciation of your family name. I never check it.
No worries. No worries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Fava. Madam President of Expo 2015, Mr. President of the region of Emilia-Romagna, Mr. President of the National Research Council, Madam Ministers, Assessori, thank you again for your leadership and actually for honoring us with your presence in the launch of this great initiative. And again, renewed thanks to the region of Emilia-Romagna for championing this initiative. As was mentioned, I'm going to try to build on what Professor Fava has done in capturing the conversations that have taken place yesterday and hopefully contribute to setting the stage for what comes next in the formulation of this forum as a legacy for Expo 2015, Feeding the Planet. I'm going to try to use these slides essentially to help hopefully follow this recap. Well, first of all, yesterday we mentioned the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and there was a mention that food was actually quite preeminent in this agenda. It was identified in a number of development goals. And essentially, food was positioned from a number of standpoints, whether be it from access to food or actually using food as a determinant of health or a determinant for human development. We also reaffirmed the clear linkages between food safety and food security, that we cannot establish food security without the foundation of food safety. But then when we discussed the way these two issues were positioned as top priorities in policy agendas or in investment agendas, it was in fact clear that while food security seemed to be mentioned quite a bit, food safety actually lacked some level of momentum or some level of support. That needs potentially to be, confirmed, but it is an element that potentially pushes us to identify that more advocacy may be needed to ensure that these two agendas are recognized together and potentially also appear in a preeminent fashion in investment agendas. We had the opportunity yesterday to look at some of the challenges and the issues, and we identified, in fact, that from a food safety standpoint, for example, the challenges and the priorities seem to be quite well documented, and in fact, there was quite a bit of effort being spent in methodologies of foresight and also prioritization. Not that this should not continue, but there is already a wealth of information as to what we need to do. And here, I don't know if I'm actually citing this verbatim or trying to paraphrase what was mentioned, but I remember myself writing this note that we may not need necessarily new initiatives, but rather mobilize resources around existing ones so that essentially we can achieve progress in addressing these challenges. We had the opportunity to hear from FAO, and specifically FAO's calls for action to promote food safety and food security, but also to mobilize the stakeholder community at the global level around its food safety strategic direction that was established in 2014. And we've heard also that there was a commitment at the multi-sectoral level. We've heard preeminent food regulatory organizations, science organizations, actually echoing that call for action and willing to contribute to fostering food safety and food security. The same call actually was clearly evident on the part of the industry and the academic sector as well. Now, I think what the discussion will be focusing on is what comes next. And if you recall the discussion paper that we have provided and the concept note that opened the way to this forum, we have made a suggestion as to what this forum is trying to achieve. And one of the elements in the context of food safety and food security was to ensure that we mainstream, in fact, food security and food safety as well as nutrition at the level of national, regional, but also global policies. So essentially positioning them well within this policy agenda. We also attempted to define who is involved, so the players, and I believe that most of them are actually quite well represented at this forum. We've identified that this forum aims, amongst other things, to bring together national, international, global food policy makers, food regulators, both at the national level, but also international organizations that are responsible for food standards, development agencies and funding agencies, and perhaps actually we need more of those if we are to mobilize resources around that, global food businesses, but also small and medium enterprises in food, given that they constitute, in fact, the bulk of those who produce food, particularly in the development world, but of course consumer organizations as well at the international level, as well as research, academic, and innovation communities. Now, on the what side, we have identified, a few suggestions of what this forum could do. Obviously, sharing knowledge, sharing experiences, and best practices appears as one of the elements to start any type of dialogue, but also stimulate this dialogue, foster it at the strategic level, and make sure that the partners are engaged around potentially what we could define as common goals, and promote leadership and hopefully some partnership development that will address key challenges in the area of food safety and food security. I guess actually the questions that will remain before us is how we do this and potentially what comes first. And the panel that we've had yesterday actually shed some light on some paths that we could explore as to how we could do this and what comes first. And we've heard actually one of our speakers or panelists indicate that right now, even though there are many initiatives, we suffer from fragmentation of action, and that potentially this forum could support, mitigate this fragmentation of action in these areas. Resources and their scarcity was identified. If you want to achieve progress, we need to mobilize around those common goals. So mobilizing resources could be one of the first things that could be considered as part of the forum undertaking. And this is essentially, I think, what hopefully our panelists will be speaking about. I guess these 2 days are meant to be a starting point for a journey and an agenda for action. And without further ado, I hope that I have captured most of the discussions that took place yesterday and contributed to setting the stage for the upcoming panel. With that, I would like, without further ado, to invite Christian Patterman, who is the moderator of our panel. Christian does not need any introduction. He has an extensive bio. You have the bio in your documents. He has been known as the father of the European bioeconomy. He's a very experienced moderator and eminent speaker, and I would like to hand him the mic and the podium. Thank you very much for your attention.
Well, thank you very much for the flowers. I don't know yet whether this is deserved. You have to judge that in the end. I ask all the panelists who are on the program, please come up and join me. There are 2 persons, according to the program, which will not be here. One is Madame Tajani, whatever you want, Madame Tajani, and the other is Paulo de Castro. Both can't be there. Yeah, nice to meet you, Mr. Minister. Please come up. So we have a lot of food for thought. But, François, please come. Are we all there? I think so. Well, will you move up there? Thank you very much. So, first of all, this is a panel on a vision for the future. And I like to keep that, a vision for the future. It's not the repetition of just discuss all the many, many challenges we have. And for this reason, we have a particular group here, which you have normally, I presume, not yet seen and listened to. That means they come geographically from 3 continents. Europe, Asia, and the United States or North America. They come from institutions which are very different, regional authorities, European institutions, world organizations. They come from the funding side, from the policy making, industry and regulatory business. So this is a very important, interesting group together first. And therefore, I want in the next 55 to 60 minutes that I want to squeeze out of these people here who have a tremendous experience on their professional background from all over the world. I want to squeeze out, based on their experiences, what their most important 3 elements of a vision for tomorrow are. That means I don't want that we are going to discuss, the losses, decrease the losses and increase the yields. I don't want to ask and discuss the processed food discussion on the mega urbanizations. I might discuss the role of the middle classes, which are very important, but I want these people to stress 3 of their most important parts of a vision they think will happen. And I also like, as we are here in Europe, I also like to invite them to discuss a little the future role of Europe. And that, I think, is very, very fascinating, because we're having here regions, we're having a country, we have Europe, and then we have also people from the outside might look on the inside. And then last but not least, in the second round, I would love to have the views of these experienced persons on, if I may say so, what is the way to continue this interesting dialogue Samuel has described wonderfully, not only together with Fabio in this paper, but also given in his summary. What is the way how to lead the discussion in the future? Is it worthwhile? Don't we have too many other competitors already around? And what are the unique features of such an endeavor? That means I want to know, what is the farm of tomorrow? What is the farmer of tomorrow? What is the food of tomorrow? And what role are we in Europe playing? And I like to start, Mr. Minister, with you, Mr. Minister Bianchi, from the Emilia-Romagna. We are very grateful for hosting this here. You are the Minister for European Political Development, but also for schools, university, research, and labor. You have the floor. Everyone has only 3 to 4 minutes time, and I will be very brutal with you. I know when I say 3, it's 5. Mr. Minister, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Christian. Now, let me say at the very beginning that we are in a time that we need to have a vision, and time by time also to be visionary. We are coming out from a too long crisis, and we need to rediscover collective objectives. We need to work on a huge objective for everybody. This idea to have the possibility to give a proper piece of bread, using the biblical idea, to everybody in the world, and at the same time to guarantee that this piece of bread is safe, is a very strong idea. We need strong idea, a strong ideal, like Europe after the war. You say, which kind of firm? I think that we need to use also in this aspect this idea of biodiversity. We don't need one model. We need a variety. Because, for instance, in several countries, emerging countries, we have to promote small individual companies because surviving is the objective. And we have to provide competencies for that. In other situations, we are in the condition to have also big companies. But let me say, the role of research today. We are facing a new scientific revolution. In the past, most of the science was devoted to go inside, to go deeper in the specific issue. Now we are in the situation that we are able also to design, to co-design the answer for different needs. Take the case of new materials. In the past, we had the materials, and the way was how can we use these materials. Now that we are able to invent new materials for specific needs, but we need to, we need to rediscover the needs of the people. And for this reason, we need to be together. So there is one side that is big science. The other side there are the institutions. On the other side there is people working in the different companies. And we have also the Association of Consumers. Europe. I think that now Europe has a beautiful opportunity to discover the role of Europeans around the world. That is to mix creativity and science, and to mix the capacity to answer to the specific needs of the people with the organization of industry. Okay. This is my idea, and let me say then, the region of Emilia-Romagna is here because we are coming from a tradition of people working in the farmer, but this is not enough. And for this reason, we are very happy to be just a platform for this very large, I feel, very productive discussion.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Minister. So I sum up. It's the diversity instead of uniformity. Exactly. It is the integrative view et respice finem. And it is also that Europe, which, because of its tradition, can really help us there. Thank you very much. I'd like to give the floor now to Aldo. Aldo Longo, a good colleague and friend of mine from Brussels, director in DG Agri already, I think, since '83, if I may say so. And he's responsible for rural development and research. He's an agronomist from Naples. And, well, he represents the agrarian Europe at this moment here, and we look forward to your views. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chris. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to represent the European Commission here in this very important forum. Congratulations for the organization, to the region Emilia-Romagna, and to Professor Fava. Well, let me revert a little bit your question and split it in three different questions. The first one that I would like to put on the table and to draw your attention on how nature can help us in sustainable farming. And if I focus on primary production, I would like to project myself a few decades ahead and be happy to see that thanks to the strong effort for research, we are able to understand much better how the nature, how the living organisms interact with each other in all parts of the agrosystems, and that we are able to use this information to optimize ecosystem services for an efficient and sustainable agriculture. No doubt that this will necessitate a lot of efforts, a lot of investments in research, in farming, in basic and applied research, in big data, but there is much unknown in this area that we need to turn in knowledge. This is the first item. The second, I would put on the table and draw your attention on ICT. A big contribution is expected. And it might be, does not look extremely original, but I would like to mention that the role of ICT will play in the coming decades. We know that many different applications are already running in European farms, food processing, and other sector in the chain. I think that there is a lot much to do, and I think that we will translate this in a significant reduction of resource input and in very big progress in our farming model. ICT will change how supply chain work, it will change how markets work, and it will also change how policy is done. I would draw also your attention on the SCAR Foresight report that I think you share with our colleagues that will be presented at the forthcoming conference on 8 October in Brussels. And this report insists rightly, I think, on what they call the digital revolution. This will be the big event of our future. At the end, I would put the last question: how to implement all this, how better implement research, results, and innovation on the ground. First of all, I would say that with Horizon 2020, we doubled the effort of the research in agri-food sector. And this is very important. We have 3.6 billion in the period 2014-2020, is a big effort. But I would also draw the attention of the colleagues of the European Innovation Partnership, the EIP Agri, where we create with the program of rural development a very powerful mechanism to transfer knowledge, to create on the field real innovation. We expect that about 2,000 projects will be approved in the rural development program. Yes, I would like just to conclude saying that we launched an exercise for a long-term strategy on agricultural research. We will have a very big conference in January next year, and I hope that all the participants will be very, very interested in this long-term strategy on agricultural research. Thank you very much, Chris.
Well, thank you very much. I sum up, it is the interaction, interdisciplinary, which will be an important element for the vision, will be the role of ICT, the role of the digital revolution, agriculture 4.0, and Europe also changing the supply chains, etc., etc. And Europe has a lot of very interesting, if I may say so, instruments available in which we were able to implement that. Thank you very much. Paola Testori Coggi, not only a colleague, but a good friend of mine, former European Commission Director General in the very important area of health and consumers. She's no more in Brussels, but she has been very active in the preparation of the Expo, and in particular in the areas of the sustainability, but also in something which is sometimes a little neglected. That means the role of the woman. And Fabio has given us some good examples. She was very active, the International Board of Women for the Expo. And so we are very much interested in your priorities, which I'm sure will have something to do with health.
Yes. My priority, in fact, is to tackle inequalities. And I want to pay tribute to Simona Caselli, who raised the word inequalities yesterday. We have to realize that in all the areas which we have discussed, the gap between the developed world and the developing world is enormous. And I want to make 3 examples, the 3 areas where I think that really we have to tackle inequalities. First is the food safety standards. We have to realize that we are in a globalization of the food chain. So we, in the developed world, we have the highest safety standards. They have been developed, there are legislation, there is control. We are capable of detecting all problems which exist in the food chain, but we depend on imports. And Mike also said, even US depend 90% of the fisheries is imported. And this food which we import come from a developing world where the level of food safety is lower, where the engagement and the commitment of the public sector, of the government, is lower, and the capacity of the private operator to tackle food safety is very, very low. So we must invest in capacity building, in technical assistance, in training, and especially in commitment from the government. And also we, like US, United States, Europe, we have to realize that we cannot continue this, I would say, this course to increase our, safety level, because apart that there is an incredible cost to cope with this, but we have also to turn on the other part of the world which produce great part of the food. And for this part of the world which produce food, to have a higher level of safety is important for their population, but is important also for the trade. Second, nutrition and health, better nutrition. And here the challenge is obesity. We have not spoken very much about obesity. And what is very serious in obesity is, apart the number of how many, 1 billion people obese, 1 billion people overweight, and 300,000 obese. The problem is a trend. 5 years ago, one child out of 4 was obese. Now is 1 out of 3. So if we continue with this trend, and this relates to the sustainability of our society, sustainability of our healthcare system, because 10% in our developing world, 10% of the health cost already relates to diseases linked to obesity, and in a moment when there is austerity and economic austerity, we cannot afford. So we need. And also for the developing world, as soon as the developing world arrive to an average income, the middle class, their eating pattern change, and we see obesity even in the developing world. So we need to tackle this, and here we cannot act through legislation or through regulatory approaches. We need to act with public-private partnership, with joint action, with voluntary action. Industry is already doing a lot, but we need to give more visibility and more credibility to what industry does and continue this joint effort. And here the role of women is particularly important, because in any case, women, because they are workers, they are farmers, and also in the family, they are role model. Third area is the food losses and the food waste. I know that you don't want the dimension, but it's important because, again, here there are inequalities. We, in the developed world, we lose food at the distribution and consumption area part, while in the developing world, they lose food in the harvesting and in the primary production. So, and there are technologies, there are innovative technologies, there are best practices. So we must invest, to improve both parts of the world. So again, for me, the problem is that the world has these great inequalities, and we have to invest, because if we do more technology transfer, more capacity building, we can improve the situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I sum up. Inequality, fighting them successfully with an enormous impact on the very diverse relationship between the different worlds we have. Very, very important. Second point, better nutrition. Also with respect to new ways of tackling with that in the future, which we should be ingenious with new PPPs, with new ways of partnerships of industry. And third one, also as a part of the inequality, that we fight the food losses in a really reasonable manner. Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, we now move out of Europe. We move to the United States first, and I'm very happy that Michael Taylor from the US, the Deputy Commissioner for Foods and Veterinarian Medicine from the US Food and Drug Administration, is with us. He's a good colleague of mine. He's a lawyer and also a policy analyst, and he studied in a university where I also lived some parts of my life in Virginia. You are the first to fill this post, if I'm not mistaken, of food and veterinary medicine in the United States. And I'm very, very interested, and we all are interested, in what your perspectives on the vision for the future are.
Thank you. And again, really pleased to be here and enjoying this this terrific meeting. The thing that I want to just take a minute to do is keep us focused in the context of all the diversity that we're talking about across the food system. Keep us focused on what really is the common thread, and that is the consumer. Food security is about meeting consumer needs and expectations, about access to food, about the safety of food, about nutritional quality of food. And I think globally that is a very powerful force, that consumer expectation and demand. And I think in particular in the context of food safety, it has enormous power. When you talk about sufficiency of food, you're talking about the markets being supported to work to meet these needs. When you're talking about food safety, you're really talking about a public good that consumers expect to be delivered by public authorities, but also by those who are actually providing the food to them in the marketplace. And so this is, to me, a powerful force for bringing us all together in a joint effort to meet these expectations, to meet the consumer demand for safe food. I often say when I speak to our stakeholders back in the United States, and they are many, they're diverse, they don't agree on everything by far, they have many conflicts, but on the subject of food safety, there's just enormous strategic alignment between our consumer constituencies, our industry constituencies, all the experts. We have strategic alignment around the subject of food safety, and that's why our theme in implementing our food safety law is so focused on collaboration with all of those who have a role in food safety, whether in government or industry or in the research community. And I think if we keep our eye on the consumer and their expectations and tap into the energy that provides, I think that becomes the basis for figuring out how we better mobilize our efforts. While again, diversity across the food system, we have the commonality of consumer demands. We also have commonality of the scientific foundation for food safety. So how do we bring all of this together? And I think dealing with the issues that Sammy Godfroy put forward in terms of dealing with fragmentation, dealing with mobilizing resources. Again, there's just a common alignment, there's a strong strategic alignment of interests around meeting these consumer expectations. And I think a forum like this, which includes many people who are involved at a policy level, at a research, at those sorts of levels. Again, we just have to take it down to the consumer level, mobilize that energy, and use that to feed a collaborative effort on food safety. I think that's the main message I want to leave. And I think this forum can play an ongoing role in similar sorts of forums like this. You ask about Europe. I love Europe. I embrace the leadership role that Europe plays. I think on food safety, we want a transatlantic partnership, and we want it to extend to all of our partners around the globe, where again, whether it's in the United States or Europe or China or Africa, consumers are driving change on food safety. Let's figure out how we harness that for the ultimate good of food security.
Well, thank you very, very much, Michael. I sum up your 3 points. The first one is the globalization of the food safety, which also in the minds of others are really a predominant factor. The second one is look on what the consumer wants, much more than we ever have done before. The third one is maybe we have to rethink quite a few of our activities under the auspices of the public good. Indeed, that's, I think, a very important point for a vision of tomorrow. And last but not least, the TTIP, is something which we will look at, but we should get away from many of these, let me say, preemptive biases, etc., and try to make the best out of that. So thank you very much. We stay in the United States, in Washington, and now I give the floor to a very good old friend and ancien combattant of mine, François Legal. He is a co-founder of the Global Livestock Initiative. He works since '93 in the World Bank in Washington. That's why I said we stay in the United States. He is a special advisor, a senior advisor for food safety, livestock, and agriculture practices. A very interesting combination. And he's, from his education, a veterinarian. So we're very interested in your global perspectives, probably with a strong emphasis on livestock.
Thank you very much. And first of all, thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy to be with you. I belong to an institution which mandate is to end extreme poverty by 2030 and boost shared prosperity. So this is my angle. An institution that is working both with government at national level and providing loan and grants, but also having a private branch, the International Finance Corporation, that can make deal with the SMEs. So we have this duality. We also are engaged in the conversation at global level about global public good, climate change, food security, and so on. And I belong to the agriculture unit of the World Bank. And so we do believe that we will not achieve our objective of ending extreme poverty without agriculture. So I wanted to start with that. And saying before I go to the 3 points that I'm delighted to see the level of convergence of ideas and recommendation that we've got from the conversation since yesterday. I don't think that 5 years ago we would have had the same convergence. So this is great. So 3 points now. First, on the positioning of this forum. Second, on, I think, the necessity to include in the conversation animal agriculture. Of course, I'm a livestock guy, so I need to say something about that. And then a quick consideration of exploring the possibility of using One Health approach in the conversation. So let's start with the positioning. On the identity of the forum, I think it's a unique forum, a fantastic one, and a forum that has a lot of strength. First of all, the fact that this is supported by a region, the beautiful and impressive Emilia-Romagna region, is a plus, and I think we need to keep that, because this is kind of unique, and this is a strength. Secondly, the fact that it's combined food security, food safety, nutrition, and sustainability is also something quite unique, because I don't see that happening elsewhere, and this is something that you should maintain, I think. The fact that you are open and you build the platform around multi-stakeholder partnership is also a plus. It will have its challenges, but this is a plus. But in the same time, you seems to be quite focused on research and innovation, so that can help mitigate that things. So all these things are fantastic, providing that you will be able to liaise and collaborate with other platforms. We mentioned yesterday the Global Food Safety Partnership on capacity. There are many others, including on the livestock side. The Global Agenda for Sustainable Livestock is something that you should consider also, and there are many others. And to finish on the first point, I think if you can position yourself and provide the bridge that are often missing between the upper level political dialogue and policy to what is happening on the ground and the result and impact that such a things can bring, if you can position yourself there, and I understand this is more or less what you want to do, then you will have a guaranteed success. Second point is to include animal agriculture. I have not seen in the paper that were presented, nor here much during the conversation, many references to livestock. And it is a subject that is complicated. If there is one sector that is misunderstood, this is the livestock sector. So this platform can help us to raise awareness with science-based evidence, communicates to the public at large and to policy makers about all the good things that this sector can bring. It's a very complex, very diverse one that has a lot of footprint in the global public goods that I was mentioning. The relation between livestock environment, livestock and equity, livestock and health, you name it. This is also for us, the World Bank, and for our partners like FAO in the room, or other, that needs to be considered. You heard about the livestock revolution, a tremendous growth in demand for animal product that will be followed, and that is being followed by an incredible growth in supply. The majority of the supply will come from developing countries, so this is happening. And of course, there are a lot of positive things for economic development, poverty reduction, food security. There are also, we know, negative impact that the livestock is responsible for that we need to acknowledge. But the good news here is that there are many, many examples, and I'm sure that this region can bring us a lot of good examples where we can come with win-win solution. I heard a little bit earlier this morning the trade-off, the necessity for trade-offs between intensive production and environment impact. Well, let's take one example, and only one example because we don't have time. In the dairy sector, you can do both. If you intensify, you gain in efficiency, you lower your emission, and you manage better your waste. So here you have a positive impact to the environment, and you have a positive. So it's a double win or even a triple win example. And there are many case and good example on health, on environment, on equity. The last point is, and I will be quick on this one, is to consider One Health. When we talk about multi-sectorality and capacity building, especially for developing countries, there are one area where I think we have not been good enough, and that is very promising, is to have better collaboration. And Kazuaki from WHO yesterday mentioned the difficulty that we find in many developing countries, but not only developing countries, I would say, to have a collaboration between Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Health, and Ministry of Agriculture. Let's add Ministry of Environment in that interface. So the capacity of those countries, more than 100 countries in the planet, to better prevent all these emerging or re-emerging issues at the interface of the environment, the public health, and the veterinary public health, I would say, the animal, the human, and the environment, is going to be the future, I think, and has a lot of promise. It has already delivered a lot of good things, but there is potential for much more. So position the World Food Forum, consider animal agriculture, and learn and build on the One Health approach. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I sum up very encouraging words towards the continuation of this dialogue. You're preempting a little our discussion later on, but you'll get the second time the floor there. The second point is the enormous importance, chronically neglected, of 48% of value of the value chain in agriculture all over the world is based on livestock. That's not the majority, but it's 48%. So that's a very important point, and in this respect, I very much welcome your One Health ideas, etc. This integration between trade, food, between livestock, human health. But I have one criticism there, and I said that in the conference of the Italian pathologists, the pathology on Monday in Torino, where also One Health was discussed. You have practically only veterinarian scientists and not plant biologists in this group, and that's wrong, because the animals are eating plants. I'm sorry to say it in this trivial way, so we might enlarge, I think, the circles of the One Health, but that's underway. Thank you very much. From the US and global levels of funding, we now come to the budding future of our world, and that's Asia. And I'm very happy. I was really fascinated that we had someone here who lives in Singapore, in Asia, Bev Postma, a global corporate affairs specialist. A global corporate affairs specialist. That's a new branch, but very important. She's executive director from a kind of watchdog food industry, Asia, an eyewitness, I think, of most fascinating developments on the spot there. And although she's a marine biologist from Liverpool, I think the dimension of her thoughts and horizons are a little more than that. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to our wonderful hosts and our generous hosts. Your vision in this region is tremendous, and it excites me to be here. I've loved your hospitality. It's legendary already, but you have lived up to your reputation as one of the most hospitable regions in the world. So thank you. And thank you to the authors of the excellent discussion paper. My own organization and my team back in Singapore were very privileged to be a small player in building that discussion paper. So thank you to the authors for condensing so many thoughts into a very comprehensive paper. It's a great honor to be here. I feel rather humbled to raise the flag for the continent of Asia, but I'll do my bit to represent the small piece of it that I'm able to work in. I agree with much that has already been said, and I'll try to build on it rather than duplicate. 8 years ago now, I was fortunate to relocate from my role in Europe to the continent of Asia. I was asked 7 years ago now by a group of leading multinational food companies to launch a non-profit platform.
Thank you very much.
To stimulate public-private dialogue to tackle some of the region's toughest and most difficult food issues. Our goal 7 years ago was to build many of those bridges that Dr. Kazuaki was referring to yesterday. And in 2009, we put 11 of the region's top CEOs. So these are, between them, they run multi-billion-dollar companies around Asia. We put 11 of these thought leaders into a room together. Now, let's picture the scene. These 10 gentlemen and 1 lady, they are aggressive competitors with each other. You know, they very rarely sit in a room together, and it's very hard to get them to agree on anything. These are aggressive and very competitive brands in their space, but these are visionary leaders in their own right. We asked the 11 of them if they could name 3 issues that they felt that they could tackle together, non-competitively, by working with governments. We asked them to particularly find issues that weren't already being covered adequately by other groups in Asia. They came up with 3 pillars: food safety, nutrition, and in that they referenced the double burden of nutrition in Asia, both undernutrition and overconsumption with obesity. And the 3rd pillar was efficient trade, particularly the focus on harmonizing food standards. Now, obviously, those 3 are also 3 fundamental pillars of food security. And if we take the 1996 World Food Summit definition of food security, it's where all people at all times have access, which requires trade, to safe, nutritious food to sustain a healthy, active lifestyle. So over the last 7 years, we've spent the time building regional multi-stakeholder roundtables to tackle each of these 3 pillars of food security in Asia. Now, like many of you, I am always awed by the sheer scale of the Asia region. And the pace of change in this region is truly phenomenal. These changes, without doubt, are going to have a massive impact on our world food system. Whether we like it or not, it's happening, and it's happening right now. I personally believe, and this is my one thing I believe for this forum, we need a quantum shift in our thinking. Research, technology, and innovation. We need to take them to the next level, a whole new level. We have all of the ideas and all of the capacity in this room, but we need to scale it. And we need these brains to be working even faster and even with better funding, because, you know, I'm going to give you some numbers now, and I think you know these numbers, but it doesn't help to remind us about these numbers. And this is just China, just China. So China has 1.4 billion people to feed. That's 20% of the world's population. But China only has 9% of the world's farmland. And it's already a net importer of food. So let's put that into context. The EU has approximately 12 million working farms. Can anyone guess how many farms China might have? 128 million farms. That's more than 10 times the number of farms in the EU. But China has already exceeded its capacity to feed itself. So where's all this food going to come from? Potentially the EU. But since 1990, China has halved the number of people suffering from hunger. It's doing a good job. It's making progress. But that still leaves 134 million people going hungry every day. And again, let's put that into context. That's more than double the whole population of Italy are going to bed hungry still. And this is just one country. This is just China. The numbers from India, from Indonesia, and from the other huge developing markets in Asia are equally mind-boggling. So the rate of urbanization, the rise of the middle class in Asia is driving dramatic, and I'm using these adjectives, and I'm English, I don't use big adjectives very much. I leave that to my US colleagues, but these superlatives are important, that we're driving dramatic increases in food consumption, especially protein from animals. The numbers are just simply staggering, and they keep getting bigger. You blink and the numbers have gone up again. So one fact that Kazuaki made in his presentation, no, I think it was Dr. Wong made in his presentation, the one fact that we need to focus on is that by 2050, 2/3 of the global population will be living in cities, in high-rise buildings, miles away from any farming. And we have to remember this is a complete reversal from life in 1945 when the UN was established, when 2/3 of the global population were living in rural communities. So, in my humble opinion, we need to be bolder. We need to urge our policymakers to allow us to unlock the power of technology to solve this pressing challenge of food security and food safety. The private sector, the food industry, Silicon Valley, the investors around the world, they are poised to invest billions of dollars into this space. So why are they not? And the simple and horrifying reason is that they're crippled by this climate of fear about technology. And we heard the last 2 days, there are so many technologies that are waiting to unlock this problem that just simply aren't going anywhere because a vocal minority is terrified of change and terrified of that technology. So, if there's one thing, and I'm limiting it to one, if this forum can do one thing, I believe it's to help us remove the fear of technology and unlock our full potential as a human species to innovate our way into the 22nd century with enough food for everyone in the world. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Beth, that's what I expected, a very strong statement on your experiences in Asia. And I don't want to add one point here from my personal experience, if you permit me. I was working in a group in the United Nations on the middle class of the world. And there's a definition of the middle class. It's a household who has daily between $10 and $100 at his disposal. And at this moment, we have 1.9 to 2 billion people living in middle-class households on our planet. In the next 25 years, we will have at least 1 billion more people. But now it comes. 90% of this increase will come from Asia. So you know where the music will play, if we like it or not. So I sum up, Asia will be very important as a vision, in a vision and part of the vision, and we will have to cope with that. Now we come to our last statement. It has already been said by quite a few of you that imports and exports, that means frontier crossing of food, globalization of the food chains is very important. So that's important for food safety, food security, regulation. Second point is health. Very important because many people want to have healthy diet, also tasty, etc., etc. So food regulations will play an enormous role, and therefore I was very happy that we had in our panel also the boss of EFSA with us. Will food safety regulations, as a vision, and I repeat, as a vision, will they be more an obstacle? Will they be a facilitator of healthy, affordable food? And here I'm very happy that Bernhard Url, the executive director of the EFSA, and he's there since, I think, middle of last year, you know that he's with us. He's a European by profession living in Parma, also in the Emilia-Romagna. And I would be very happy that he tells us Now, what is very seldom that you find a vision on the food regulations and regulation as such. It's very sophisticated what we ask you for. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, and buongiorno a tutti. Thank you for raising the bar that high.
Absolutely.
It's a plan to fail, we would say, but I'll try. I would like to, as you asked us, to pose 3 thoughts. The first one is about food security and food safety. We have now so many discussions about food security, biodiversity, bio-based economy, sustainability, and sometimes I think we forget to integrate food safety into this concept. I think we have by design to integrate food safety right from the beginning into all our food security considerations, otherwise we will fail. And there you could say that we need, from the safety point of view, from the risk assessment point of view, a co-evolution between the innovation we have in the food industry and the agri-food industry and the innovation we have in the science of risk assessment. Because otherwise, we will face problems that we have new technologies, and as powerful as they might be, we cannot assess them, and maybe even more importantly, people don't trust them. And there are some examples in biotechnology, at least in Europe, where we face this problem. So this also poses the question towards research. Who in this society is deciding what research is done and which research is not done? It's wonderful to have the competitive Europe, the Europe for growth, the Europe 2020, which brings innovation to the market. But you could ask the question, who is doing the production of data for the assessment of risks in the society? And do we have enough research for this part, which is not directly linked to competition and to innovation? And there I think we need a movement in the science of risk assessment, which we could call from truth to trust. And for that we need the society. We are not yet there. Second thought, in the globalized world of trade, obviously it's a no-brainer that with the goods travel the hazards. So we have a global distribution of hazards and risks. And this asks for a globalized approach on safety assessments. We are happy in Europe to have the European Food Safety Authority now since 13 years, to have at least in Europe a harmonized approach. Difficult enough sometimes if you think of, let's say, issues like bisphenol A. But we have a harmonized approach in Europe, but we need a globalized approach in methodology, in data and expertise for food safety risk assessment. This only can be a globalized approach in the future, and we EFSA have to contribute to that. Third and last thought. And there I would like to remind us a proverb of a combatant chairman, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, who said, knowing is not enough, we have to apply. Willing is not enough, we have to do. And I think this is very true in our times. It's not so much, I think, that we miss information and knowledge, it's about integration and implementation. And there, I think, could be a role of this World Food Forum, to integrate and implement all the knowledge we have about production and safety on food. And I fully agree with Paola Testori. I think we cannot do this without fighting inequality. Fighting inequality will be a key step and a key necessity to solve at least parts of these problems in the global food supply chain. And for this, for fighting inequality, we need political leadership. And we need this political leadership also in Europe. And this is something I believe we could have more from. Strong political leadership towards these goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So thank you very much. And your points were very clear. From truth to trust. And then from the, European harmonized standards to globally harmonized standards, and then simply do and not only analyze and think and discuss, etc. Very strong messages also with respect to an appeal to Europe to come to its roots. Now, I want to conclude this role by giving each of you again the floor whether you have any very practical suggestions to the authors of and also the organizers of this meeting how to continue. Now, Francois, you have already mentioned that. You know, you're in favor of that. If you want to add something later on, please do that. But I might like to start from that side. Mr. Minister, would you have one or two additional suggestions in the way how this dialogue could be implemented and also to facilitate?
Let me say one word, that is education, because we have to involve the people, we have to empower the people, so that we have to launch also programs to educate the people about health, about safety, about the food. I think that we are very happy to carry on this platform, but also moving, stressing more the word research, but stressing also the word education, because this is the way to involve also the people, and the people are the people also legitimating our action.
Thank you. Michael?
I think a common theme is really emerging here, and it is around consumer sovereignty and this truth to trust concept that Bernard put out. I mean, I think we can all in this room readily embrace this broad vision of a food supply, a food system that looks radically different 50 years ago than it does now, with lots of technological innovation, making it possible to feed in a safe and nutritious way a global population. But that innovation only goes so far as consumers allow it to go. And I think we have had plenty of experience where technologies have not been embraced. And yes, there's vocal minorities that are partly responsible for that. But if you don't bring the population along with this powerful vision of innovation, it won't happen. And so again, I think in terms of this forum, again, thinking about possible roles, bringing folks together who represent these divergent points of view. And there are different values that aren't in this room particularly strongly today that need to be brought into this discussion. And I think this forum, operating from this common vision of food security can play a role in doing that.
Thank you. And that for certain is something which you don't find in quite of these competitive areas, etc., which exist already. Thank you. Aldo.
Yes, thank you, Chris. I think the first thing is that this regional initiative, I agree with other panelists that is very good, that this regional dimension, and I appreciate very much the initiative from Regione Emilia-Romagna. Secondly, I see that your intention is to have regular meetings. And I think this is, I insist on this, it's very important to have a follow-up and to try to have an horizon on each 2 years, if I understood correctly, is a very positive thing. Third thing, or suggestion, is that I think that it's very important to have a sort of interlink with other similar initiatives, and I would say, like example, the SCAR foresight initiative every 3-4 years, and I think that a good osmosis between these 2 initiatives is very good. Of course, to develop synergy is very important, is the biggest challenge that you have for the future. Thank you, Chris.
I thank you very much. Very important statement, in particular with this practical suggestion of the SCAR foresight. The 4th one on the 8th of October will take place. Paola.
This forum is clearly is a model because it is an independent forum. It's a forum which is for the moment is publicly funded, and it is important to maintain this independence, because if we want to create and to foster trust from the population, trust from the consumer, and to create also convergence on mutual on shared objectives, we need to have this kind of independent forum. I agree that there are other fora which exist in the area of food safety, which exist in the area of food security, but one forum which covers the entire, problematic, like the problematic of Expo, I think it does not exist. So for me, we should maintain a broader focus based on existing, so try to, to link on existing, and maintain this independence, which give the value to the forum.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dave?
Yes. Well, just to pick up, I think, on a point that Francois touched on the One Health agenda, but maybe on a broader area. This forum has great power. If this forum chooses to use it and we can find alignment on a common vision statement, there are a number of very clear calls to action that we can make to global policymakers. I tend to think of the architecture of government as being quite challenging when it comes to tackling food security, whether it's at country level, regional level, or global level. I think of food security as this three-legged stool, and it tends to be propped up by three quite wobbly legs at the moment around the world. We have the agriculture leg, the health leg, and the trade leg. And this region is showing an example of how if you can get those legs walking together, and we get agriculture talking to health, talking to trade, and sitting in the same room and hosting dialogue about these integrated issues. Let's scale that. Let's try and we're seeing the UN is trying to do that. I know FAO, WHO, WTO to some extent are starting to hold an integrated conversation on food security, but it's really not cascading down into developing countries. As we've heard, it's very difficult to get the Minister of Health, the Minister of Trade, and the Minister of Agriculture or Finance in the same room together to have a common dialogue. And I think one of the things this forum can do is lead by example and show that it's essential that that dialogue is one dialogue. And I have to just pick up on this point of consumer trust. I work with some of the most trusted consumer brands in the world. These are 100-year-old companies. They cannot sell, they couldn't survive for 100 years if consumers didn't trust them. Let's be very careful which rhetoric we're believing when it comes to trust. These companies know their customers. They do consumer research every day on a very high level. Most consumers don't fear technology unless someone peddles that fear. And we're allowing the peddling of fear because we're not challenging pseudoscience. We're not standing up and saying, no, that's not evidence-based. That's not fact. And maybe this is something we've all just got to collectively stand up for and be a bit louder in not allowing the peddling of fear when it comes to technology. Because most consumers, especially hungry consumers in Cambodia and Laos and Myanmar, they're not frightened of technology that will potentially feed their families. They want technology that will feed their families. And I think we've just got to be very careful not to buy into a climate of fear of technology. We've got to say no. It's not right to allow the population to be scared of something that is safe, that it's gone through the right regulatory test regime and it's safe. So that's my hobby horse, as you can tell.
Thank you very much. Francois, if you want to add something to it, then Bernard, you have the last.
Yeah, thank you very much. I would like to come back. I think in science and in knowledge creation, we have also created a lot of silos, very deep silos, silos full of knowledge. I think now, and this could be a role of the forum, it's more the integration and implementation part. And there the forum could have a very good role in integrating also the different stakeholder views, an independent view, and in this level between innovation, creating knowledge, and applying knowledge to do something useful for the society. I think this could be an exquisite role for this forum.
Well, thank you very much. It's time for me to conclude because the organizers are already furious with us when we are so long here. I first want to thank all the panelists for the enormous discipline. I mean, I have very seldom had such a meeting where people really were disciplined enough and speak 3 to 5 minutes. Thank you very much. There are 4 areas for a vision. There has been, the first one, there has been many, many times the word inter used. Better interaction, better integration, better, well, interdisciplinarity, better integration with a view to public goods, with a view of food safety into any kind of design, etc. So this is the first important visionary element, a stronger inter. The second one is, if we like it or not, globalization. And there will be a trend from standardized, regionalized, Europeanized to the globalized, with an enormous impact on the food chains, also ranging from food rules and regulations to questions of imports, quotas, etc. And here, Asia will play a really predominant role, also if we like it or not. This is the second part of the area of the vision, the globalization with a strong part of Asia. The third one, content of such a vision. And here, consumers, health, and also the integrative One Health initiative, fighting inequities, breaking out of your silos as a method will be playing a very important role in the future as a vision. And then the fourth one, the role of science and technology. And here, the future will be, if we like it or not, based on science and technology if we want to feed the planet. So the way how we in Europe look on processed food, I have a lot of sympathy for that, but we have to rethink that. Because if the other continents are not of our opinion, we might have the same problem as in climate change, that in the end the Europeans are in a minority situation. Now that's, for heaven's sake, improving now, but a few years ago we had that situation. So these are some elements for food for thought for you. There is a converging of ideas that this forum should continue, and I hope you got quite a few interesting parts in a bouquet of suggestions how to get along. Again, thank you very much, all the panelists. Thank you very much, and also to the organizers. Thank you. Great. Thank you very much.
Excellent moderator.
Thank you, thank you. Well, with your help. Grazie, grazie signor Ministro.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris Patman, for the excellent, very excellent roundtable. Thank you very much, all the prominent experts who participated in it. It was actually a superb roundtable. For sure, we will use a lot of the inputs that we receive for improving our document, our position paper, etc. Thank you very much for this. So I take advantage from the podium for also thanking on behalf of my colleague as well, Professor Goffrey, all the prominent experts from over 20 different countries who participated in the discussion of our preliminary document, providing us very useful inputs. And we will continue incorporating inputs, all those that we receive here. But I wish to also thank sincerely the local scientific committee who also contribute remarkably for refining and in a very effective way. So thank you for this. Thanks to also the chairs of the session, the coordinator of roundtables yesterday and today. So thank to all of you, the active participation in our discussion. And I think no, to leave the floor now is the time for approaching to the final session. So I invite our president of the region, to Dr. Bonaccini, to reach me at the podium and then to continue with the final session. Thank you very much.
Io aspetterei il ministro, se siete d'accordo, un attimo, anche per cortesia, perché dovendogli dare la parola dopo.
So we are waiting for the Minister for the Agriculture, Dr. Martina. He is coming, he's on his way. And so, yeah, sure. Please, if you have any other comments,
following the debate in our panel, what we do not realize, how much in Europe, in particular in Europe, there is this opposition to new technologies. I've been working in the policy making in Brussels. Maybe it's not felt so much in the regions, but in the central governments now, there is this problem of, it's true that it's led by few NGO, but it's strongly led. So we need to find ways together, you know, and I'm sure that this forum, and this is the reason why
sure.
I stress as an independence, this forum can really help to promote science, innovation, and technology.
I fully agree. Your comment was absolutely essential. So we have to keep it as independent. That is very, very important because we can make this give us the opportunity to be more effective, super partes in some ways. Thank you. We can take advantage from this this time for also getting other questions, other suggestions from the audience. Yes, please, Roger.
I'm Roger Short, working with ASTA. I'm also on the board, director of a charity in the UK that works a lot with the poorest of the poor. But my point is more in the forum, what's in helping to profile the forum, and whether we should not think along something of the lines from the sector that I have been very much involved in, water, is something like the World Water Development Report that would come out in relation to this forum just before the forum in 2 years' time, is to think along those lines. I have scanned. I don't think there is anything around in terms of a global report about what we're doing. It's just a suggestion, maybe to the bank, World Bank, EU, FAO, some ideas on that.
Any comments? This is, of course, a good input. We try to also include something on this, but the exercise should be more ambitious because the topic is absolutely relevant. Any other comment, questions? Rogers, also the idea that you had to better link, better align this initiative with the Sustainable Development Goals after 2015. This is also another input that we should take into account for the next initiatives, the next editions of the World Food Forum. Do you want to add something on this? Because this was something that we didn't discuss, especially in the last session, that it can be interesting.
I think, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
It refers, there's been a lot of discussion leading up to the development goals, the Sustainable Development Goals, the post-2015 agenda, even from the International, I've forgotten, Science Committee that gives inputs to the UN about the silo approach. And obviously, the SDG 2 on food impacts on so many of the NDGs, whether we talk about obviously reducing poverty, but the situation of women, water comes into it, so that it plays a very central role in achieving the SDGs, having food, but then there's the climate change impact. So we have to really think in those terms as part of this forum. Otherwise, it's not a global forum.
Yeah, we have to align strategies for sure.
Yes, and I think for the colleagues who are from the UN, we talk about, colleagues in the forum, from the UN. The SDGs are being implemented along a policy of the rights-based approach, which is our conventions and rights that affect us all.
Yeah.
These conventions were not made just for developing countries, they were made for everyone. So the SDGs, in many ways, they affect us all. So I think we should take that into consideration.
Thank you. Yes, yes, please, Samuel.
Thank you, Fabio. I would like actually to come back to the theme that has just emerged about managing innovation, or at least, fostering more trust in innovation, and what are the means essentially to address that. And actually, it got me thinking. Food regulators are facing this on a regular basis. Paola mentioned, she's facing it at the central government level, or at the EU. Supranational organization looking at food standards. We're facing it in North American food regulatory agencies. A number of other regulatory agencies are facing that. Industry is facing it on a regular basis, because actually such fears sometimes in a number of other regulatory authorities actually can translate in lack of approval, or actually in a complete slow process, essentially facing that. But also consumers are basically left with the strongest voice, and the strongest voice is essentially those NGOs that make the most noise. And it got me thinking, is there a forum actually where dialogue is potentially fostered or created even to tackle this issue? And I don't know, I didn't have an immediate answer to that. And given that I don't have any immediate answer to that, one of the possibilities is to consider that this forum could be that forum for fostering such dialogue. After all, we have identified it, in fact, as one of the objectives. And essentially what we were struggling with, or not struggling with, what we're trying to identify is what are the potential first themes that we could address. And this could be potentially one of the most urgent themes, given that, again, innovation could be an area where we could address a number of challenges, and we could potentially trigger that. Now, I'm opening this to challenge, potentially, and I see that Bev is ready to challenge me on that, and given that we are in a dialogue, absolutely happy to hear Bev's view on that.
Sorry, Sammy. It's not a challenge. I think it's just a pragmatic reality. I think we've all been part of this dialogue because it's playing out in our tabloid newspapers. There's only so many times you'll put a CEO from a big company on a stage to get eggs thrown at him or her. It's just such a jailbroken spot. I mean, the reason why we can travel the world and come to these remarkable fora is because we're surrounded by people that want to have a constructive and positive debate. And, there are some fantastic civil society groups that we could entertain a debate like that with, but it's a fine line who's in that room. And then how do you make that a constructive debate? How do you put science at the heart of that debate? And because this isn't really about science in the outside world, it's about things beyond science. And if this is a science-based forum, let's talk about science. But if you're going to turn it into a forum about ethics and religion and all the other things that are driving these perceptions, then we've got a whole different forum on our hands.
Thank you, Bev. I guess actually I'm gonna not necessarily try to challenge what you just said, because basically you voiced realities, but perhaps in an attempt to answer that, and I'm gonna wear my optimistic glasses. I've been optimistic that the sky will clear today and we will have a wonderful day. But I guess actually the answer to your point is that this forum could help actually create such conditions. I mean, I would consider that a forum where a CEO from a food company is presented to a consumer organization and getting eggs thrown at them is not the right forum. And hopefully we could create, or we could hope to create conditions that would help this dialogue happen. And actually putting the science at the center of it is definitely one of the considerations that we could potentially push. I'll stop there because otherwise we'll dialogue this for probably the rest of the afternoon. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Samuel. I think there are other comments. You have one. Yes, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, Roberto Tuberosa. I'm not sure what, but biotechnologist in Bologna, University of Bologna. Congratulations to the organizer. I'm partly involved myself, so I'm congratulating myself, so I may have a conflict of interest. To me, sounded like honey to my ears, seeing how much we talked and praised innovation. When I opened my class, I quote Bill Gates, who was asked once at FAO, "Are you optimistic or pessimistic about the future of mankind?" He said, "Optimistic." And the people were a little bit surprised, and they asked me, "Why?" "Because we have technology." And the funny thing, and I think this is a little bit of a paradox, and pardon me, Chairman, whatever, I'm going to throw you a little bit of controversy. We have a lot of paradoxes in our society. No better place than today, after all said and done, that we are at Expo, and who did, sorry to say, the Comune of Milano chose as the icon of the Expo, Vandana Shiva. Very nice lady, I have nothing against her, but that's the kind of conundrum that we are in our society. And as long as we don't get out of that trap, cultural trap, we're not going to go anywhere. I like to say, I often feel that myself, I'm like a firefighter, firing against a fire, but there is somebody throwing gasoline at the fire. You'll never get out of it. But anyway, thank you very much for your praise of innovation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Please.
Giancarlo Caratti, I'm the Deputy Commissioner General of the EU Pavilion. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers. As I said yesterday, I think Expo has been Expo for not only for the visitor, but also for the contents. We, as European Union, we've done 230 conferences. Now there is a conference on sustainable intensification of agriculture with Commissioner Potocnik to discuss the best way to implement. So a lot of people think that this is not content, but we have a lot of content. Now the problem we have that Expo is ending on the 31st of October. So we'll have a lot of work that needs to be continued. And what we emphasize is to solve the problem of humankind, which is to feed in the planet, you need to work on technology. So I think we as European Union, we see this as a fantastic opportunity to continue the work of Expo, to bring forward the Carta di Milano and the scientific document that we are producing with Franz Fischler, and create a global forum where these things can be brought forward. Otherwise, everything will end on the 31st of October. So that's at least our position.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this input. Very relevant. Yes, please. We have another comment on now, colleague. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Charles Kwesiga from Uganda, but I got invited as president of a World Association of Industrial Technological Research Organizations, WITRO. Otherwise, from yesterday and today, the world that you have as it's a world forum. But my definition of geography tells me this wasn't really a world forum. However, I'm encouraged, and I add my voice to those who talked a lot about inequality in the world and the intentions to work together with a fundamentally important conference when it comes to food safety. The fundamentally important region, the continent of Africa. And so I'm hoping that based on the recommendations I've had this morning, that indeed it will be more inclusive and that future dialogue will include the African continent. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for this comment and for being here and contributing to our discussion. This is important support, important endorsement that we received. Thank you for this. Any other inputs? Yes, please. There are a couple of. Thank you. Please, introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Marie-Cécile Damave. I work in a French think tank in agriculture called Safagridé. I would like to come back to this idea from truth to trust. I think we here most of us are scientists, and for us the truth has a scientific basis. But for many people who are not scientists or who don't have any scientific background, then the truth may be different. So we maybe all have different definitions of truth, and then trust cannot be built on the same basis if we have these different definitions, because many people challenge the truth of science. Of course, I am a scientist myself, so no problem with that. I think there was a very good example on the dairy situation, the fact that intensifying dairy production actually is good for the environment because you can manage better energy and animal waste, etc. This is very well documented. This has a very scientific basis. However, it's challenged by many people in my country. It's very difficult to expand the size of dairy farms because a lot of people actually question that and challenge that because it's just the economic model that they challenge. It's not the science. They don't want big farms, they want small farms all over the country. And that has nothing to do with science. It's just some economic model or some philosophical perception. And of course, this is very much related to the approach of biotechnology in my country that you probably know very well. That is, there's a pretty strong opposition to agricultural biotechnology, and it's not based on science, of course, because it's very well documented. It's just a philosophical approach of the issue. So this is all connected.
Thank you for this this contribution. I know that is another one, so please, Paola.
I just want to explain to the forum what is this Women for Expo initiative. The Women for Expo initiative was launched by Emma Bonino, and the idea was to make sure that in the Expo theme, the role of women is in fact is focused on. And clearly for the theme of this Expo, which is agriculture, sustainability, women is fundamental, but also for the new Expo, if you take the Expo in Astana, which will be in 2 years on energy, the one in Dubai, which will be on digital technologies. So now the Italian government will propose to the Bureau International des Expositions that the program Women for Expo remain as a permanent program. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this input. This was also an important information that we need. Okay, thank you. Thank you to all. I think it's the time to move to the final session. So I invite our president, we move to Italian, just to the Italian language. So invito il presidente Bonaccini a seguire.
Grazie perché ci ha aiutato a gestire qualche momento di fermo, immagine altrimenti. Niente. Tanto ringraziando, salutando il Ministro dell'Agricoltura del Governo italiano Maurizio Martina, a cui farei anche un applauso per la presenza e perché ci ha consentito di chiudere degnamente una 2 giorni, per la quale io vorrei innanzitutto fare un grande ringraziamento a tutti voi, perché tanti di voi sono venuti anche da lontano, si sono sobbarcati un lungo viaggio e hanno consentito con le vostre professionalità, diciamo così, la vostra esperienza, soprattutto la vostra autorevolezza, di fare in modo che quello che era qualche tempo fa, 2 anni fa, un'idea che dall'Emilia Romagna è uscita, è venuta ed è stata estesa a tanti altri soggetti, autori internazionali, europei, nazionali, legati al mondo della sicurezza alimentare, della produzione agricola, di cibo, di istituzioni, anche tanti governi. Abbiamo avuto diverse tappe in questi 2 anni. Io voglio ringraziare davvero tutti coloro che dalla mia regione in poi hanno lavorato incessantemente per fare in modo che quello che era un'idea abbozzata su un foglio di carta è diventata una bella, mi auguro in futuro splendida realtà. E credo che questa 2 giorni, grazie al vostro contributo e di chi oggi non è potuto essere qui ma è intervenuto ieri o questa mattina ed è dovuto partire, abbia dato l'idea di come questa Expo, questa esposizione universale, per la quale si decretava o il fallimento o il rischio di una poca produttiva organizzazione e svolgimento ha dimostrato invece che è capace non solo di attrarre milioni di persone, potrebbe addirittura essere 20 quelli che arriveranno da qui al 31 di ottobre, ma soprattutto creare le condizioni per discutere di temi di cui, diciamoci la verità, l'agenda della politica e dei governi in questi anni troppe volte hanno messo in secondo o addirittura in terzo piano. Noi crediamo che la discussione legata al tema della sicurezza alimentare, poi certo food safety, food security tradotto in italiano non rende merito invece allo svolgimento di quei due titoli, ma certamente l'idea che da qui a qualche anno noi si debba lavorare e ragionare se esiste in ognuno di noi una coscienza civile, se vogliamo dare in epoca di migrazioni un senso all'idea della dignità umana che dovrebbe essere quella non solo di avere un lavoro ma anche di avere qualcosa da dare da mangiare a se stessi, ai propri figli o alle proprie famiglie, possa diventare realtà in un mondo in cui ancora oggi troppe persone, circa 1 miliardo, hanno troppo poco o addirittura nulla da mangiare ogni giorno. L'idea di provare a mettere insieme una sfida gigantesca come quella di come aumentare la produzione di cibo e in ogni caso garantirci che quei 9 miliardi di persone da qui al 2050, se le previsioni demografiche sono giuste e sulle quali addirittura Papa Francesco ci ha scritto un'enciclica, come dicevo ieri, o parte di essa, e come mi pare da alcune parti del mondo in via di sviluppo o che stanno una marginalità che non meritano, pongono al centro dell'attenzione generale appunto dei dibattiti di quel mondo che sta un po' meglio come da queste parti, credo sia giusto farlo, ma definitivamente farlo avendo attenzione al bene unico che ci rimane, che è la sostenibilità di questo pianeta. E il tema di come aumentando la produzione di cibo non compromettiamo definitivamente l'acqua, l'aria, il suolo, parte del suolo, credo sia una sfida gigantesca che la discussione fatta in questi 2 giorni, io peraltro voglio ringraziare il professor Fabio Fava, il professor Samuel Godfrey perché ci hanno dato anche l'opportunità di mettere a rilievo e a sistema la discussione che c'è stata appunto in questi giorni. D'altra parte ricerca nel settore agricolo, ricerca e innovazione nel settore agroalimentare, sostenibilità delle produzioni, dicevo, sicurezza alimentare, sono davvero gli obiettivi strategici su cui noi, caro Ministro, vorremmo che un'agenda comune possa essere messa insieme. Ma quando dico insieme intendo i governi, le imprese, la ricerca, ovviamente le istituzioni nazionali e internazionali, le reti europee e globali. Da questo punto di vista siamo onorati di aver avuto la presenza in questo quadro della Commissione europea, della Food and Drug Administration degli Stati Uniti d'America, dell'Organizzazione Mondiale della Sanità, della FAO, dell'Autorità Europea della Sicurezza Alimentare, che come sapete da tanti anni ha sede a Parma, nel cuore Emilia Romagna. Con Bernard Url abbiamo addirittura pochi mesi fa, non si era mai fatto, svolto una sessione ad hoc dell'Assemblea legislativa dell'Emilia Romagna proprio per porre al centro i temi di quale ruolo l'EFSA, ma non solo, questo World Food Research and Innovation Forum poteva avere in ambito di promozione di idee e ragionamenti rispetto ai quali tutti siete stati e siamo impegnati. Peraltro quest'anno è un anno straordinario perché abbiamo 4 appuntamenti globali. L'anno europeo dello sviluppo, l'Expo appunto di Milano che si rivela un successo straordinario, l'Assemblea Generale delle Nazioni Unite e il Summit per l'adozione dei nuovi obiettivi del millennio post-2015 che si terrà a fine settembre a New York. E d'altra parte, il prossimo anno, anzi il prossimo dicembre, verso la fine dell'anno, quell'importantissima conferenza delle Nazioni Unite sui temi del cambiamento climatico che si svolgerà a Parigi e che mi verrebbe da dire è un po' un'ultima occasione per verificare quanto vi sia coscienza negli stessi governi nazionali e nelle istituzioni internazionali per le sfide gigantesche per troppo tempo rinviato che abbiamo davanti. E d'altra parte la Carta di Milano, che ho sottoscritto pochi minuti fa anch'io nel mio piccolo, dato il nostro piccolo contributo della Regione Emilia-Romagna, ha un percorso e costituisce un percorso definito, chiaro, la legacy di Expo Milano 2015 per l'alimentazione globale sostenibile per tutti, nella quale come Paese, noi dentro a quel Paese, vorremmo rappresentare un motore permanente di sviluppo e coesione a livello internazionale. E d'altra parte l'agenda per l'adozione dei nuovi obiettivi del millennio post 2015 ha 17 nuovi obiettivi di sviluppo sostenibile, 169 target che mirano a porre fine alla povertà, combattere le disuguaglianze, promuovere prosperità nel pieno rispetto dell'ambiente entro il 2030. Ecco, questa sì è la grande occasione che dicevo, penso l'ultima che ci attende, quella di una chiara strategia globale per affrontare le dinamiche correlate a tutte le sfide della vita sul pianeta. L'Emilia-Romagna, da parte nostra, da parte della nostra regione, è pronta a accettare questa sfida. È una regione in cui è nato da molti anni un modello di agricoltura sostenibile. Ha dato vita ad importanti tradizioni agricole e alimentari, alcune delle quali perfino uniche a livello mondiale. Lo sviluppo dell'industria alimentare sostenibile a cui si affiancano eventi fieristici di livello internazionale, lo sviluppo di centri di ricerca dedicati all'alimentazione, come abbiamo anche detto in questi 2 giorni, la presenza a Parma, ricordavo, dell'autorità europea per la sicurezza alimentare. Desideriamo mettere con grande umiltà, ma anche consapevolezza delle qualità che da noi si sono sviluppate nel campo in particolare della ricerca scientifica, a disposizione del Paese, dell'Unione Europea. Ci mettiamo a disposizione per attrarre competenze, progetti, esperienze a livello mondiale sulle sfide della ricerca alimentare e della sicurezza alimentare per tutti. Il World Food Research and Innovation Forum aveva questo obiettivo, per provare a costruire risposte tra tutti gli attori delle filiere dei saperi, delle istituzioni, delle imprese, delle reti europee e globali. Il World Food Research and Innovation Forum aveva e ha l'obiettivo di promuovere dunque una piattaforma permanente e un evento internazionale biennale dedicato a questi temi, dentro al quale però anche un evento strategico ogni anno e la prosecuzione di gruppi di lavoro internazionali dedicati, una piattaforma di condivisione e promozione della ricerca nel settore agricolo, agroalimentare e della sicurezza alimentare. Al centro di questa discussione e al centro delle strategie globali che abbiamo provato a immaginare, io con soddisfazione vi annuncio e mi auguro vogliate essere protagonisti come lo siete stati in questi giorni, aggiungendovi anche altri che non sono potuti venire, ci hanno però mandato contributi importanti che metteremo al tavolo dei gruppi di lavoro prossimamente, che il World Food Research Innovation Forum avrà il suo sviluppo e la sua prossima edizione insieme a Cibus, l'importantissima fiera internazionale dell'alimentazione che si terrà a Parma il prossimo 9 e 10 maggio del 2016. Dunque la prossima primavera un importante appuntamento che possa dare corpo e prosecuzione a quello che abbiamo fatto. Un appuntamento peraltro importante, dicevo, per quanto riguarda la nostra regione, insieme a altre importanti fiere dedicate all'alimentazione, e alcune le conoscete sicuramente, quali Sana, Macfruit che apre in queste ore, Cibustec, partner attivi peraltro nel progetto strategico di questo forum. Insomma, e concludo, gentili ospiti, illustri esperti internazionali, rappresentanti di tante istituzioni, vi ringraziamo davvero ancora e di cuore per il vostro lavoro, la vostra partecipazione e soprattutto per averci dato modo e lustro di avere una qualità della discussione che non era per nulla scontata soltanto fino a poco tempo fa. Vi attendiamo in Emilia-Romagna a Parma il prossimo 9 e 10 maggio del 2016 e nel dare la parola al Ministro Martina voglio dirgli che lo ringraziamo come Regione per la caparbietà che il Governo ha messo nell'organizzazione di questo evento, insieme ovviamente ai protagonisti e agli organizzatori e ai vari commissari, e ringraziarlo perché mi pare che vi sia una nuova consapevolezza nell'agenda del Governo, che sui temi dell'agricoltura, dell'agroalimentare e dell'agroindustria possa vedere una nuova stagione, come noi la stiamo immaginando, che è quella di fare di quel comparto e di quella filiera produttiva uno di quei comparti che non avrà più il segno meno, come ha avuto troppe volte in questi anni, ma che potrà avere in questo Paese il segno più dal punto di vista della crescita e del contributo a una nostra vera ossessione, che è quella di tornare in questo Paese e anche nella nostra regione, che pure ha sempre avuto performance eccellenti, nuovi posti di lavoro. Credo che sia una cosa da riconoscerti e da riconoscervi assolutamente non banale, è la ragione per la quale avete accolto, e vi ringrazio e ti ringrazio, la partecipazione e la presenza e ci avete sostenuto nel voler tenere questi 2 giorni a questo appuntamento. Grazie davvero e buon lavoro.
Buongiorno a tutti, grazie innanzitutto a a tutti voi, a Stefano Bonaccini, al Presidente, alla Giunta e a tutte le persone che hanno collaborato con la tua Giunta e con te, Stefano, per la realizzazione di questo appuntamento. Grazie ovviamente a tutti gli ospiti presenti, grazie più in generale alla Regione Emilia-Romagna per il lavoro enorme che ha fatto per Expo. Non vuole essere, diciamo, un balletto di ringraziamenti reciproci, ma non vorrei che fosse una formalità questa. È un ringraziamento sentito perché la Regione Emilia-Romagna è stata a tutti gli effetti una regione protagonista dell'esperienza che noi abbiamo fatto e stiamo facendo con Expo Milano 2015. Non poteva che essere così, dato innanzitutto data l'esperienza enorme che le terre dell'Emilia-Romagna hanno, soprattutto in campo agricolo, agroalimentare, nel rapporto tra agricoltura, ambiente e modelli di sviluppo. Non devo certo ricordare a voi quanti tesori custodisce la regione Emilia-Romagna proprio nel modello agricolo italiano, le sue eccellenze, il suo saper fare, e noi avevamo bisogno del protagonismo di una regione forte come quella emiliano-romagnola per raccontare qual è la forza del modello italiano, quali sono i punti, diciamo, anche di confronto che noi offriamo alla platea internazionale di esperti e più in generale al confronto che si è animato nell'esperienza di Expo Milano 2015. E vi ringrazio anche per aver concepito questo forum. Ne parlammo all'inizio, quando io non ero ancora ministro, facevo però il sottosegretario con delega all'Expo, e già si capiva l'importanza di un momento promosso da una regione forte come l'Emilia-Romagna, incrociando esattamente i contenuti che sono stati qui sviluppati e soprattutto provando seriamente ad affrontare un tema che continua ad essere decisivo, dominante, e cioè l'intreccio sempre più profondo tra tecnologia, innovazione e modelli agricoli e produzioni agricole. Questo è un intreccio sempre più evidente, è una discussione sempre aperta, è un campo, diciamo, di ricerca e un terreno di confronto sempre aperto. Credo di poter dire che Expo sta contribuendo a rendere sempre più cruciale questo intreccio, a rendere sempre più evidente come, ad esempio, il ruolo delle istituzioni pubbliche, dello spazio pubblico, tanto in chiave globale, mi riferisco agli organismi internazionali e certamente allo spazio europeo, quanto in chiave territoriale, istituzioni regionali ma anche ovviamente Stato centrale, sul nesso, nel rapporto tra tecnologie, innovazione e modello agricolo, devono ingaggiare, secondo me, una frontiera più avanzata di quella che non abbiamo maturato fin qui. Io credo che non tutto si possa, per fortuna, ricondurre magari a semplici a discussioni spesso un po' troppo semplificate, ad esempio, che so, nella questione OGM sì, OGM no. Credo che ci siano grandi spazi di discussione nel rapporto tra tecnologia, innovazione e modelli agricoli ben più avanzate, e credo che da questo punto di vista il modello italiano, il modello delle 100 agricolture italiane, può essere a tutti gli effetti un modello che senza arroganza mette a disposizione di una discussione globale il suo saper fare, le sue peculiarità, anche e soprattutto, vorrei dire, non tanto e solo nel racconto di tradizioni, che hanno ovviamente il loro valore, noi poi ci siamo affezionati, non può che essere così in una storia come quella di un paese che appunto non ha un'agricoltura ma ne ha 100, molto diverse tra di loro. Il tema non è solo, diciamo, ricordare a noi stessi o offrire a una platea internazionale la forza di una storia. La cosa interessante per noi è offrire invece la visione di prospettiva di un intreccio molto peculiare che il modello agricolo agroalimentare italiano ha sviluppato, ad esempio nell'intreccio di questi fattori. Siamo qui, c'è una regione protagonista come l'Emilia-Romagna, come non discutere ad esempio di come manifattura e agricoltura, soprattutto nei nostri territori, hanno sviluppato una capacità di tecnologia e di innovazione e una scommessa assolutamente vincente che ha fatto proprio del nostro modello un caso, direi, unico al mondo, molto particolare. L'esperienza di questi mesi in Expo ci ha dimostrato, secondo me, ci ha confermato che, ad esempio, qui c'è una peculiarità del modello italiano che può incontrare anche una domanda, un bisogno molto più vasto. Quando noi abbiamo la fortuna di incontrare e confrontarci, ad esempio, con tanti paesi africani, ci rendiamo conto che possiamo mettere a fattor comune nel confronto con queste grandi esperienze, ad esempio, questo unicum particolare dato dalla nostra capacità di sviluppare innovazione e tecnologia lungo i processi produttivi, agricoli, agroalimentari, con una capacità, ad esempio, di organizzazione e un tasso di innovazione, soprattutto nel rapporto con la piccola e media impresa, con la piccola e media esperienza agricola, molto particolare. Una leva formidabile, ad esempio, nel rapporto con questi paesi. E non posso certo, come dire, non ricordare a voi che cos'è per noi tutta l'esperienza della meccanica agricola, del packaging alimentare, della nostra appunto capacità di sviluppare tecnologia e innovazione al servizio di un modo nuovo di produrre, più efficiente, più sostenibile, più equilibrato. Io dico anche davvero più dedicato in particolare all'agricoltura, fatemela dire così, familiare, di piccole e medie dimensioni, dove il tema che dobbiamo sfatare è che il piccolo non sia innovativo, che il piccolo non possa avere grandi contenuti tecnologici, che sia solo il grande ad averne e che il piccolo viva nella tradizione. Non è più così. Questa è l'altra grande, secondo me, scommessa che emerge anche dall'esperienza di questi mesi. Quando abbiamo riunito, Stefano, tanti ministri dell'agricoltura coinvolti in Expo dai 140 paesi aderenti i primi di giugno, una delle questioni che abbiamo discusso con loro è stata proprio questa, cioè la capacità di produrre innovazione e tecnologia dal lato dell'agricoltura familiare, che rimane oggi in Italia e nel mondo lo scheletro fondamentale di riferimento dei modelli agricoli. Non c'è solo, dobbiamo sfatare un po' questa cosa per cui non si produce innovazione e tecnologia lì. E semmai il tema vero è avanzare, come ingaggiare rapporti più forti con questi tessuti di piccola e media impresa, come fare ad esempio in modo che il trasferimento tecnologico sia sempre più diffuso, che non verticalizzi solo per grandi assi, fondamentali pure quelli. Io non sono per la discussione piccolo-grande nella versione novecentesca superata nei fatti. Sono perché quando componiamo in maniera armoniosa un modello, soprattutto se penso al modello italiano, è nel protagonismo di tutte queste esperienze, nella loro capacità di lavorare insieme, che tu costruisci il vero punto di forza. E credo di poter dire che nei mesi di Expo noi abbiamo contribuito a rendere evidente questa partita e adesso dobbiamo fare ancora un po' di lavoro, in particolare perché dobbiamo portare una parte anche dei contenuti che avete sviluppato voi con il forum sempre di più dentro l'alveo dei percorsi istituzionali, degli spazi di discussione pubblica che abbiamo tanto a livello nazionale quanto a livello globale. Lo dico a qualche ora dall'inizio di un percorso molto intenso che avremo nei prossimi giorni, dove la Carta di Milano, l'elaborazione che noi abbiamo insieme costruito fin qui, approderà a New York proprio nell'ambito dell'Assemblea Generale che, fra le cose, discuterà anche i prossimi obiettivi del millennio. L'Italia quest'anno porterà in quel consesso anche la forza di una elaborazione costruita attorno al grande tema nutrire il pianeta, energie per la vita, che fa dell'Italia, secondo me, come dicevi bene tu Stefano, un paese particolare da questo punto di vista. Un paese che può contribuire con la sua specificità, senza arroganza, ma con grande umiltà e passione nel confronto globale, però può contribuire con la sua sensibilità particolare a far maturare anche una diplomazia agricola, alimentare, dove il terreno della cooperazione, del confronto, dell'interazione tra pubblico e privato, tra grande e piccolo, tra modelli agricoli differenti, diventa il vero terreno su cui scommettere anche per corrispondere concretamente a quegli obiettivi generali che la comunità internazionale si sta dando, in particolare per l'obiettivo della completa eradicazione della fame da qui ai prossimi anni. Io penso di poter dire che senza arroganza però noi dobbiamo avere la consapevolezza che c'è un modo di sviluppare cooperazione, in particolare dell'Italia, in particolare su questi temi, molto forte. Noi non saremo certo una grande potenza per come si può definire una grande potenza in termini novecenteschi, no? Dal punto di vista delle sue quantità, ma siamo una grande potenza dal punto di vista della nostra capacità di sviluppare ad esempio queste linee di confronto, di questa nostra capacità di animare anche vie di cooperazione in campo agricolo, alimentare molto particolari. Io sento questa forza, Expo ce l'ha data e non è un caso che qui siamo riusciti anche ad affermare una specie di diplomazia agricola e alimentare, la chiamiamo così, che ha consentito ad esempio a paesi che quando magari esci di qui sono fra di loro un po' diciamo in conflitto o comunque faticano a dialogare, qui dentro hanno dialogato e lo hanno fatto con una capacità di confronto e con un'aspirazione alla discussione molto profonda, molto, molto forte. Io credo che ecco, tutto questo lavoro, rappresentato sommariamente in qualche considerazione che spero sia stata utile, questo lavoro noi abbiamo il dovere di portarlo oltre il 31 di ottobre. Questa è la scommessa di oggi per il governo italiano e credo, fammi dire, per tutti noi. Noi non possiamo pensare che questa scommessa si concluda il 31 di ottobre quando questo sito espositivo chiuderà. Noi abbiamo il dovere di traguardare la chiusura di Expo e di animare degli strumenti stabili di lavoro che abbiano, diciamo, la caratura e la forza di una visione internazionale e la profondità di un confronto che ingaggia soprattutto il terreno dell'innovazione e della tecnologia, dello scambio di buone pratiche, dell'intreccio che abbiamo rappresentato anche qui adesso, ascoltandoti e cercando di contribuire alla discussione che avete fatto. Ecco, io sono assolutamente convinto che noi abbiamo seminato bene, lo abbiamo fatto tutti insieme, qui c'è davvero anche un ringraziamento sentito a tutte le realtà, le esperienze che da fuori confine sono venute qui in Italia, a Milano, hanno contribuito a lavorare con noi su questi temi. Sono convinto che noi possiamo lavorare oltre il 31 di ottobre per stabilizzare queste vie. E qui il terreno che ci offre Regione Emilia-Romagna nell'idea di fare del forum uno degli strumenti con cui costruiamo questa strategia è un terreno assolutamente prezioso. Io lo raccolgo come un vero ambito di collaborazione tra noi dal 1° novembre in poi, quando dovremo immaginare le edizioni successive, le prossime tappe. Sono convinto, vedrete anche dai passaggi che faremo da qui a fine ottobre, che la cornice dentro la quale inseriremo queste leve di sviluppo renderà evidente che c'è un'eredità immateriale dell'esposizione universale tutta concentrata esattamente sui temi di fondo che voi avete sviluppato con il forum. Questa esposizione universale si candida a tutti gli effetti ad essere forse la prima esposizione universale che ha, dal punto di vista della sua eredità nel contenuto, il suo vero asse fondamentale, e non tanto in un contenitore, in un'infrastruttura, in un luogo. Poi c'è anche il luogo, e per l'amor di Dio noi tutti siamo tutti i giorni a discutere il post-Expo nella versione anche di che cosa giustamente accade qui dopo il 31 ottobre, ma fatemi dire che considero davvero l'eredità di Expo, la prima vera eredità di Expo, il lavoro che riusciremo a fare dal 1° novembre sul terreno proprio della nuova cooperazione in campo agricolo, alimentare, tecnologico e di innovazione, ben sapendo che è su questo che noi faremo la differenza se vogliamo davvero evitare che i prossimi obiettivi del millennio, che discuteremo tra qualche giorno alle Nazioni Unite, rimangano solo sulla carta. Noi tutti dobbiamo praticare un'innovazione possibile che faccia diventare realtà quegli obiettivi. Si può fare, non è vero che non si può fare. La storia di questi anni ci ha anche dimostrato che accanto a tanti problemi, tante difficoltà, tante curve complicate, ci sono state però anche grandi opportunità, ci sono stati anche straordinari avanzamenti. Si può fare, bisogna avere la capacità di costruire percorsi concreti che traducano quegli obiettivi in realtà. Penso di poter dire che Expo sta contribuendo effettivamente a fare questo passo, a sviluppare questo lavoro. Per cui vi ringrazio veramente di cuore per questo forum e per tutta l'attività che avete sviluppato durante Expo, e posso solo che dirvi: rimettiamoci a lavorare insieme, perché le mete e gli obiettivi che sono stati delineati impongono a tutti noi un lavoro che va oltre il 31 di ottobre. Grazie, buon lavoro.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry to tell you that unfortunately we have to leave the conference hall because there is another one which is going to begin. Gentili signori e signore, purtroppo dobbiamo lasciare la sala e c'è un altro evento che comincia fra un po'. Downstairs you will find the hostess who will accompany you to Chibus for the lunch. So you're welcome to have your lunch. Giù trovate le ragazze che vi accompagnano per